Hi, guys. Welcome to this episode of the Trainer Feed. We are your host. I am Angel Sanchez. We got DB, David Bravo.
What's up?
And we got JD, Jacques Delager.
What's
up, guys? How's it going?
Today's Trainer Feed, we're not going to have a guest on, but we are going to speak on a couple of topics. I have two studies that I was just checking out, and I wanted to share some of them. David is going to cover explosivity with kettlebells and hips. And then Jacques will cover squats and squat depth specifically.
Yeah.
Cake baking. He is the chef. He's the baker.
Making that cake.
The studies that I saw, so I think that, we launched the rover, that little Mars rover. It finally landed. Boom, it's there. We got video feed. Video feed is live. And in celebration of that, I did a little bit of research on astronauts and how they maintain their muscle mass and bone density in space, and how effective it is or it isn't. Currently, right now, they do a couple of things, which I thought was pretty interesting. I'm not sure if you guys have looked into that stuff before, but the idea or the concept long-term is that they're going to commercialize space, and the ethics of that are probably a different topic altogether. But I guess one of the things that we can focus on is, if people are going to go into space more often, how do you continue to keep their bone density where it's at or maintain it? And then same with muscle mass. How do you maintain muscle mass at zero gravity? So a couple of things I saw. One was that they use a lot of pulleys in order to train. So a system of pulleys in order to help them with like resistance bands, that sort of stuff, because obviously weight is just not going to work there. And they also started to use melatonin as a supplement, because melatonin apparently has one of the factors of it is it prevents or it inhibits the productivity of osteoclasts, and osteoclasts will break down or catabolize like bone tissue. And then so that's one thing. So you supplement with melatonin. I didn't know that that was a factor of it. I thought it was just like you go to sleep or whatever. That's the thing that people take to go to sleep.
Yeah. That was my understanding of it. Yeah.
But that's what I came on in one of those studies. So I just read it and I was like, oh, that's interesting. I didn't really think about that, but that seems to help. And then the other thing that they were speaking about is how some, like, the form of exercise that people do is obviously like with resistance training, with bands and things like that, pulleys, but also like the types. So endurance versus HIIT, they tend to go towards the side of HIIT just because of the fact that HIIT takes less time. And the less time they actually spend in space working out will have you focus on other things. Obviously, we're just talking about astronauts here and not, people going up for leisure. So that's something that they'll have to figure out in another time. Because then it's like, what do you do while you're in space if you're, doing it for like personal reasons versus professional reasons because you have like something to do up there. But they did make the argument for HIIT training because of the time factor, and also melatonin, supplementing melatonin because of its, the osteoclast deal.
Was there negative connotations or interpretations of doing the lower intent, the longer periods of activity, just lower intensity? I know that they're saying about preference of high intensity, but what was the argument saying you spend less time?
So you spend less time because you're not doing, like, we're talking about something like high intensity interval training versus LISS, right? Or low intensity steady state.
Yeah.
So the idea is that the less time these astronauts have been, like, first of all, they wanted to see if there was any significant difference between the two, and there was not a significant difference between the two in terms of maintaining your muscle mass, maintaining bone density. I believe like some cardiovascular metrics were used as well. I think VO2 peak. but there was no difference or significant difference between the two groups. So the only thing would be time, right? So is how much time are you spending actually exercising? And they said that HIIT obviously was shorter bouts. So they were able to save some time there, which made it more beneficial in.
Oh, okay. And is it the thought that you're still gonna keep on pace with reducing that muscle atrophy whilst doing your other objectives of being in space? Is that kind of what the
Yeah, that's pretty much it. It's kind of like,
okay?
even as a trainer or a coach, right? Like sometimes you just got like 45 minutes and instead of
Making
you
sure
doing
you at
like
least
this,
get it in.
right, you're just like, I'd rather focus on maybe like doing 10 things in a short period of amount of time instead of just like doing squats for like 45 minutes.
Okay, I see what you say. All right,
Like,
that makes sense.
just trying to make the most out of your time. But that seemed to be the only thing. And I thought that was really interesting because obviously people are looking for space flight for personal reasons. I know that I wanted to go to space when I was a kid. I don't know about y'all.
Do you still want to go to space?
There's nothing in space, bro.
So I think I would go to space for the view. I mean, obviously, I say like I will go to space as if I have the money to go to freaking space.
I'm going tomorrow.
Right, exactly.
COVID rates.
But like I think the view, the perspective, the isolation would be nice. But like just to have that as not isolation be nice in the sense like that's what I want in my life, but I think it would add something.
We gotta get Angel some help.
Nah, it would
Something's
add.
going on.
Like it's a different perspective. It's something that you won't ever be able to experience while alive, right? Like there's nothing that's going to be more isolated than being in space. I guess you can make the argument for being under the, in the sea, but in the sea there are things that are there and they might bump and whatever. Like space, there's no sound, right? Like it's a different level. It's a different magnitude of isolation. And I think it would be interesting to kind of like check that out. But at the same time, I don't want to spend who wants to spend that much time in space if it's not for something bigger? Like if there's an objective, maybe, but you'll get tired or bored after the fascination kind of wears out. Maybe it never wears out. I don't know. I'm not an astronaut. Maybe you just keep seeing Earth and you're just like fascinated by the fact that it's right in front of you, right? What about you guys? Would you ever take the dip?
The only thing about space is when I saw those training videos and they had to make the astronauts go around that piece of machine that goes any kind of rides, theme park rides that had any kind of repetition, like gave me serious headaches and make me want to puke. So when I saw that, I said, well, if I have to do that to go to space, there's probably not much chance I'm going to space. Like even flying, when I get to certain angles, I'm a little like, so I don't know if I could make it in space. As much as I would love to say, as you said, the views and being able to see, but for our listeners who don't know, you've also done skydiving.
Yeah, that's true.
Right.
And I think that's kind of one of those things where I was able to see a little bit. I was able to see the that area of Long Island, but also like my view was just widened because I was actually able to see not where, I don't want to say like the Earth's curvature because that sounds like, it's wild what it is.
The Earth is flat. I don't know what you're talking about.
Oh yeah, that whole thing. But you're able to see like the separation of the sky and then like land, right, for thousands of miles as far as your eye can see. And that was wild to me, just being able to see that crest or that peak. And then obviously the worst part about skydiving is the parachute down, which nobody tells you about, but it's similar to Jacques' story. They open the parachute and you have to go to the landing zone, the LZ, as David would know, playing so much Warzone. And you have to go in a circular motion until you get down to the ground. So you drop for a bit, it's a free fall, and then you hit the parachute and you just go circular until you go to your...
I never knew that.
Because if you open your parachute, it's not like Call of Duty. It's not like Warzone. You just don't drop down, right? The wind will blow you in a certain direction. And so you have to start to turn in order to drop down to one specific point. Or else you'll start in Long Island and you'll end up in Connecticut or something like that.
No one wants to go to Connecticut.
The other study that I checked out was, and David might be a fan of this one.
Oh, God. The
title is the Beer Hit Study. So, you see the face?
He changed that face.
Piqued his interest. And that study just looked at we wanted to see, or they wanted to see, the effect of alcohol consumption and its cardiovascular, or like the implications when you're consuming alcohol while exercising, doing a HIIT program. They focused on a group that was 24 years old, plus or minus 6 years, 35 females, 38 males. Beer group was randomized, or the alcohol group was randomized. So they gave everybody a preference. They said, okay, do you prefer to drink alcohol during this trial, or do you not? Those who did, they were randomized between a beer group and an ethanol group. So they had to intake alcohol for this trial. The other groups were sparkling water group, alcohol-free beer group, and then there was a control group. And they put all these people in a HIIT program, and they measured, a couple of different things, including VO2 max, max heart rate, hand grip. There were like 4 different types of vertical jumping. And then the total test duration. So like the total amount of time just exercising. And the alcohol group, I didn't mention this before, but they were to consume 330 milliliters of alcohol at lunch and dinner if you were a male, or if you were a female, 330 milliliters at dinner. So to put that into American language, it's about 12 ounces, a little bit less than 12 ounces. So not a ton. I mean, I guess maybe if you're the ethanol group, because I think the ethanol was like sparkling water with vodka or something like that. But anyway, long story short, do you guys have any, do you think anything happened? I think it was, I don't want to mess this up, but I think it was 10 weeks. I'll tell you
beer
right
group did better.
What about you, Jacques?
No, I don't think the beer group did better.
Carbs right after your workout.
Yeah, it was 10 weeks. 10 weeks, 2 days a week. 2 days a week exercising. So those are also important.
But alcohol consumption every dinner and lunch for males and every dinner for females, you said?
Good question. Monday through Friday. That was the alcohol consumption.
And
alcohol
just 2 days of
consumption was
working out.
Monday through Friday, HIIT 2 days a week, 10-week study.
Wow. David, you think
They
it
did
worked?
HIIT every day?
No, 2 days, right?
Yes, 2 days.
Oh, okay.
But drunk every weekday.
Every weekday, correct.
And you said male, it was lunch and dinner, and females was just dinner, right?
Mm-hmm.
And 330 mil, you said? Was
And whoever,
yeah.
Okay. And who did better in terms of what?
Well, like what are your, like, do you have any guesses as to what some of the results were? Like it could be like somebody did better, somebody didn't do better, nobody did better, everybody did better.
I think so. Are we saying? Are we almost asking a question of comparing the females to the males because the males drinking more?
Nah,
or?
man, no. So the variables that they used to measure were VO2.
Oh,
max.
sorry.
No, it's all good. VO2 max, max heart rate, hand grip, 4 types of vertical jump, and then total test duration. So just the amount of time doing HIIT.
David, go ahead.
The beer group did better.
He stand by. He's like, I stand by my word.
Yeah, okay.
Like,
I think
all that considered.
And by my people.
I would say the VO2 max is probably decreased, but possibly the grip level. You said the mixed grip intensity. You said sorry.
It was like hand grip test. So they did like a hand grip test.
I think that you might have seen some
hand grip strength. Sorry.
I think you might have seen some increase in that. I think VO2 max you might have seen some decrease, and then vertical jump, and the other one was what again?
Max heart rate, VO2 max, total test duration, hand grip strength, and those vertical jumps.
But what's interesting with the max heart rate, we're saying that because if we showed it, if you said. You would say it would be a successful test if the average heart rates were lower because they've got a better response to exercise, or?
I think with the parameter being max heart rate,
or able to sustain the maximum heart rate for longer periods.
Right.
More of that sort of case.
Yes.
Okay. I would have thought that would be decreased, but I mean, I'm sure you're going to reveal shortly.
Yeah. All right. Well, y'all fucked it up, but pretty much there was kind of like all groups in a couple of factors did well. So VO2 max and total test duration in absolute terms and also relative values, they all had significant improvements in regards to those. And there was clinical improvements found in the hand grip strength.
Yeah.
And then the positive, these positive effects were not influenced by the regular intake of beer or alcohol. So pretty much it's just saying like the fact that they were able to, and there was no difference or no significant change in vertical jumps incurred in any of the groups. But the fact of the matter is that if you're that around that age, because I don't want to say it's every age, and that's the consumption level and that's the exercise prescription, it seems like based on this study that
David is midway through.
Yeah, David's just like, that beer's already open, David. You didn't even wait for the study results to get through.
No, this is an old beer.
Savings up for later.
It's empty. I had that a couple of days ago. I just left it on my table.
Are you playing pinball? No, not pinball. Bowling. He's bowling.
I don't bowl.
You do now with all those beer cans?
Yeah. That's an interesting study, though. That's one I don't want our clients to hear about, though, because I'm always trying to promote the smaller quantities of alcohol, and I find it interesting. And this has never even crosses my mind, but some of the times, especially when becoming tier 3+ at Equinox, when we're able to prescribe or suggest more focused meal plans, if you will, I never have so many units of alcohol in a week. It didn't even cross my mind to include alcohol, because I want, if the client has a desire or the person has a desire to see said change in as relatively quick amount of time as possible, I'm thinking, how's the most simplest way of us getting there effectively, you know? Yeah. And so I don't include alcohol, and that's also because personally I couldn't even tell you the last time I had alcohol. I don't know what it was.
That's tricky though, because I would say that it works twofold. One, it works beneficial to them because they might just not consider the fact, like, because you're not a drinker, you already cancel it out. Like, it's just like not something that's
it's not even me doing on purpose. I don't even consider it. Yeah.
Right. Which might be beneficial for the client to say, okay, you know what? No alcohol. Right. Or it might be counterproductive, because then that's a conversation that's not even being had. And meanwhile, that's just like a staple for most people. I don't know the numbers of alcohol. I don't want to say alcohol abusers, but alcohol consumers and
alcoholics.
Where my alcoholics at? No, I don't know what the numbers are, but it proves to be a point of a conversation to have if it's a lot of people who are consuming alcohol on a daily basis or on a Monday through Friday basis. You know,
I mean, and this is not a black and white scenario, but when I think of optimal performance or significant change in body composition, whenever I saw those guys at our club doing the shows and how clean they were eating and how clean they were drinking, it was very strict, but I think we can all testify that most of those guys saw the most dramatic changes in their body when they were so strict with what they ate and drank and put in their body. And I don't know if
you're talking about bodybuilding shows.
Yeah, sorry, specifically.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm not saying this is uniform for everyone, but whenever someone comes up to me and asks for specificity in driving change in the body, whether it's fat loss, muscle growth, I not automatically, but almost automatically revert thinking to when I saw those guys, how clean they ate, how simple the foods were, how clean it was. You know, we're not talking about salad with so much dressing. We're not talking about whether it's adding bread or whether it's like I don't know. I just, when someone says, "Oh, I'm having this drink and it's only this many grams of this," my ultimate reaction is, "Can you not just have water?" And it's also because I like the taste of water, so I sometimes I can't sympathize with people who don't like water.
You're
But I guess what
also,
I'm
yeah. You're
no,
also
go
the
on.
dude who used mushrooms for flavor. I remember that one.
Did I?
Yeah. You were trying to mix up some of your foods. That you remember that people were talking shit about the food that you ate,
Bro,
like
you
the
eat
lunch that you
mold,
ate.
bro.
No. Let's move beyond the mold. All right. We were talking about his food. His plates are generally they have all the colors of the rainbow. Like he's got some orange stuff in there, green stuff in there, brown, whatever. And one day I was asking you about something because you were like, yeah, I'm trying to mix it up. I'm trying to get some more flavorful stuff. So I just bought some
Yeah.
mushrooms and I put it in. I was like, mushrooms are like the least flavorful.
So like, yeah,
It's a fungi in the world.
I know.
Or mold.
My man put the
Yeah.
fungi in. But
Well,
I get what you're saying.
I just, again, I don't. I think that's just kind of where the alcohol thought process is, and it's I don't know. I just think that when I saw those guys eating clean protein, carbohydrates, excuse me, and steamed vegetables, and they're only allowed like a tablespoon of a sauce or whatever it was, to me, I just idolize that as being, excuse me, like that's just clean eating. And it's just a little frustrating, I think, sometimes in the conversation I've had of when people are kind of like trying to finagle or barter what they could, or trying to justify something. And I just think that the simpler you can keep things, not just in nutrition, but movement as well, right? The simpler you can keep things, and especially when it comes to laying foundations or habits,
Yeah.
just go for the, like, I know they quote this at TRX, but lowest hanging fruit, like make the simple things first. And it's the same thing we've spoken about box jumps. I'm not joking around here, don't worry. But we spoke about box jumps. Like, make sure you can squat properly, and maybe do a broad jump or a broad jump before you can do a vertical jump. And like we spoke about how box jumps are maybe the third or fourth progression in terms of like that explosive movement. Like, but it's just the first one that people can be attracted to or drawn to. Same with nutrition. People are trying to do this and that, or just go simple. I know I kind of veered off the alcohol thing, but that's why I think but look, you want one thing, but you kind of want the other. And I've had a few headache conversations recently where I kind of just, you gotta meet halfway, or it's all about understanding the process of what the person wants to, what their end goal is, right? It's, what do you want, what you're willing to give up, and how you're willing to make the small changes. But sorry, I didn't want to kind of veer off alcohol, because I can kind of veer off.
You got crazy. You touched on a lot of topics there.
I know.
I think David had something to say, but if David doesn't, then I'll say something.
No, I was just gonna say that it's tough to use the whole bodybuilding, analogy in it, because not everybody's gonna want to be a bodybuilder, and they have really strict things of what they could eat or not. And it's hard to tell somebody, well, if you want to do this, then look what he's eating. And it's hard to do that because they're like, I don't want to do a bodybuilding show. I think it's about making compromises with a lot of the stuff that you're eating, because you want to make a long-term goal, a lifestyle change, rather than competition eating, because you're not ever going to eat like that all the time.
Yeah, and a lot of people, I think that's a fair statement. And I think a lot of people love beer, and a lot of people love wine, and a lot of people love, whatever it is. So trying to say to cut it out completely, or just like substitute it with water, won't work for some of these people, right?
No,
so,
I'm not saying take it out completely.
Jacques trying to
no, please don't do that for our ears. But
I would my ear too.
Yeah, there you go. We're all connected to the same shit. But I would say that having that conversation, I think that conversation should be had, so that way you can understand them a little bit better, because not everybody's like you, in the sense that, you think that water tastes very good for you, and, you prefer to drink water over a lot of things. A lot of times I go out and, I'll have a beer here and there, and I'll feel fine with it. Like, but that's just
to drink more though. That's our goal.
Well, someone was telling me of the Super Bowl, because I was by myself, suggesting, oh, why don't you have a bottle of wine or like 6-pack? And I was like, I think I'll just have pizza. Just because food is, but that's my thing.
Yeah,
food.
But that's the other thing too. Like I would have both. I think I did have both actually.
I had both.
Super Bowl.
Yeah, I had pizza. I had pizza. I think I had pizza, wings, beer, or maybe I made a margarita or something like that. I don't know.
It's not saying
Modelo.
I do love Modelo. No, it's not saying I would never have them, but it's just if I would, just a personal preference, I would rather have more foods to satisfy me than food and alcohol. But that's not, I'm not condemning either or. I'm just saying that's just like a preference. So that's when, if, for example, if I think when I got when I passed my citizenship 3 or 4 weeks ago, even though I almost didn't make it, my first thing was, oh man, I would kill for like a cookie or a slice of pizza. That was just my like draw to it. And then when I told you guys how I did I got sworn in, but that day was just so busy that I didn't almost tell anyone that I passed it, right? Because there was just so much going on. But my first thing was like, yeah, or something sweet. Like I'm like that's that sweet tooth, man, and that's yeah.
Just for the listeners that don't know, Jacques is a citizen now.
I am, yeah.
You know, hardworking citizen.
And he has his master's.
He got his master's in chemistry, and he's from England.
In case you guys want proof.
Oh, God. All right.
Okay.
No, let's not do that. Let's talk about David. David said explosivity and hips and all that stuff.
Yeah. So I'm a firm believer of heavy kettlebell swings could really improve a lot of force production in your other lifts, squatting or deadlifting. I think deadlifting in general, or more importantly, because it's the same movement, it's the hinge pattern. And at the top of a hinge pattern, especially in the swing, you need to have total control of your body because the kettlebell is going to want to bring you forward. And you're going to have to really just tighten up everything in your body to really get that pattern down so you won't hurt yourself. And I think that, and I remember I did the 10,000 swing challenge years ago, and it helped a lot with my deadlift and clean and jerk and squat and snatches, because it was just, just full body explosive hips, because you have to, every single rep should be hard and explosive. And I think that really plays a role into it. I really have my clients do that before we deadlift. I have them do like a heavy set of six swings, especially with a couple of sets. Get their hips ready, especially right before they deadlift something heavy.
For our listeners, tell us about what the 10,000 swing challenge is.
So Dan John posted this workout. I think at the time he was writing for T Nation online. And I think T Nation, for me at least, when I was first getting into working out and stuff, T Nation was like the place to go to, like to get your articles and your workouts and stuff, because they would it have so many writers posting stuff. It's not just about like muscle and fitness and shit like that, but it really posted a lot of workouts. And it's broken down. I did it in 30 days. No, I did it in 4 weeks, 5 times a week. I would take the weekends off, and every workout would be 500 swings. But you would break it up into 5 rounds. And then each round in itself will be broken up into a set of, I think, if I remember correctly, a set of 10 swings, a set of 15, 25, and then one full set of 50. And I think guys had to use 24 kilo. And I think women could also use the 24 if they wanted to. But I think it was just like 16 kilos or 16 or 20 kilos for women, and then like 24 for guys. But I've seen a lot of people do it with lower or heavier weights, but it fucking hurt. I remember the last week of it, my hands are so ripped up and bloody that I would, like, every time I would have to do the swings, I have to tape up the whole thing and just finish it. It was horrible. But it helped a lot. I mean, it's great cardiovascular work. And even then the workout itself consists of having you do exercises in between the sets. So let's say the first set of 10 swings, you do 3 push-ups, then or 3 or 5 push-ups or something. And then after the set of after the set of 15, do 2. And after a set of 25, you do 1, and then you do 50. But you would transfer it out. So instead of doing push-ups, you could do bench press. So you would like do, I think it was like 75% of your max for a couple of presses. And then you would do that with pull-ups and you would do that with squats. And then there would be 1 week where it's just straight up swings. You don't have to do anything else. But yeah, I mean, there have been a couple of studies done where it comes down to some people are saying that the weight, I remember one saying that the weight of the kettlebell the designs of the kettlebells aren't heavy enough to produce enough stimulus to effectively improve your power. That was one study. And then you have other studies that are saying, well, there has been a slight increase in production of vertical jump and squat, but I think the squat one was half squat, so it wasn't even a full depth squat. And I think it makes sense because in half squat, your hips are loaded and your hamstrings are loaded the whole time. And even with the vertical strength stuff, I think it was Mark Ripito. He's Mark Ripito, right? I'm not getting his name wrong. Or Mac? No,
I think you got it.
Mac. This is Mark Ripito.
Mark.
He did Starting Strength, which I think is a great book. I have both books. One is Starting Strength, and then one is Programming for Starting Strength. But even he mentioned, he was like, genetically speaking, you could probably only increase your vertical jump by, I think, a couple of percentage points. Nothing crazy. But all in all, it could have a slight increase in your performance.
That's cool. I was thinking about that. What you said about the kettlebell, the design of the kettlebell might not be the best for maximal power production. Is that what you said?
They mentioned not the design in terms of like the size of the handle or the size of the belt, but I think they were mentioning about the weight, because typically you have kettlebells that are from, let's say, 10 kilos only up to 40 kilos or 46 or something like that.
Right.
And I think depending on your fitness level, if you want to increase your power and you're already squatting at a high weight, maybe doing swings with a 40 or something isn't enough.
Right. Like then it becomes like you're not necessarily like wasting time, but it's like a depreciation sort of deal where you're not going to see as much relative value in doing that exercise because the load is not there. I wonder how that works with like double kettlebell swings. But double swings are a little bit tricky too, because you have to have a wider stance, and then I'm assuming you lose something because of that wider stance, right?
And you have a shorter range in the swing as well, don't you? Because of making the space. It's definitely like a more, let's say, one kettlebell, both hands, conventional stance, and then if you have the double kettlebell, it's more of a sumo stance, really, isn't it?
I guess, yeah. I mean, if you look at it, like, you don't want to change, like, you don't want to do 6 weeks of a wider stance kettlebell swing and then go do a vertical jump with like that same stance, because that's not how you would do it, I think.
Right.
But
I wouldn't say, it
would translate more to like sumo deadlift or something like that.
Yeah. But especially if your hips could take it. Because sumo thing, if you have fucked up hips, sumo probably isn't the best thing you could do.
True.
But one of the studies was also mentioning that a lot of these things that they were looking at didn't have a solid like kettlebell program. So like, you could say that I'm gonna go do swings for such a long time and increase power, but you need a solid program to do it. And it was hard. In one of the studies, it wasn't really controlled. I think it wasn't like a controlled kettlebell program. It was more like, okay, go do HIIT with kettlebells or do like
right. I will say that like sometimes these studies aren't conducted with the most amount of detail when it comes to the programming. And I'll just leave that there. In my school, they did a bunch of like studies and things like that. And I think that more detail could have been provided in a couple of variables, but it's always about generally, I think Tori was actually mentioning this, like sometimes the money of it, probably in a different regard, but sometimes the finances and how much funding you get will only dictate that you can afford like interns to be the coaches, and the interns might not have the attention or the time between classes in order to follow through with the athletes that are actually the test subjects. And other things of that sort, right? Like how much money are you going to spend on making sure that they're going to full depth, or making sure that they have these variables controlled, that their rest time is controlled, that they're, expressing properly their RPE between sets, things like that can just kind of fall by the wayside, right? Like some people could just like fall asleep for the whole day, wake up and say, oh yeah, I got to show up to this thing. And they run over, they show up to this quote unquote thing, and it's like being logged and their results are being logged. So
yeah, here it says, I'm going to read directly from the study. It was like, the description of the design of the kettlebell exercise programs used have been vague, basically. So if they want to, if they want to focus the research attention on a clearly defined kettlebell exercise program, like that'll be different whether or not they could improve measures, and everything has been just vague.
Yeah.
But I think from my own experience, the kettlebells have really helped me, and also just honing in on the pattern and technique helps a lot.
The pattern,
and like Chuck said, you got to keep it simple. Doing swings help a lot. Just keeping it simple, doing the swings, it'd be golden.
Yeah, I think that there's a couple of things there, but one of the things, just the technique of the swing, that's something that takes time and effort, and it's hard to kind of translate that to some clients, I realize, and doing a lot of kettlebell motions, but specifically the swing, which is probably like the most fundamental movement pattern, seems to be difficult. And I think that it's because everybody has their own variation on Instagram and Facebook. But maybe that's a topic for another day.
I think that, and also there's so many different people teaching a deadlift such a different way. Some people are like, well, they're not really. I personally don't teach my clients how to do a kettlebell swing unless they master the kettlebell deadlift or a barbell deadlift.
Yeah, same.
Yeah.
And then you see people that do have clients do swings and then they can't even deadlift, and it's not the greatest thing because you haven't earned it yet. Deadlift you don't have it down.
It's a deadlift at a more dynamic tempo, right?
It can really fuck you up. You can really throw your back out doing that.
Yeah, it's I know me and David have had this discussion in the past where what the cervical flexion is in a swing as well, and that's like one of my biggest things. And I know at one point I was like almost gonna lose my head because I was
there's a time, bro. There's a time kettlebell Jacques was doing a swing, and I thought he was gonna do like a somersault
because my head was all the way down.
I
was too far. Yeah, I was trying to ensure neutral spine alignment from my cervical spine to my lumbar spine, and I think after time I realized that I was forcing flexion in the other direction.
Oh, like you were like this?
I was like, I kept thinking of tucking my chin in, but it was like I was really
so you were bending. Really trying to like
I was really
He's like, you want me to tuck my chin in?
God. But that was just something that when I've like even recently with new clients that when they deadlift, it's just and I think this is Francine that really helped me see this with rows as well as deadlift was I'll never forget, this is so simple, but when you do the seated row, the cable row, she always taught us how turn it to someone doing a bent over row, and then she showed the neck position on a cable row of when someone is doing a bent over row. When people do bent over rows and they're like, it's kind of like almost like a shrug and their head. And so she showed it's the angle on a cable row. She'd be like, that's like someone leaning back and looking all the way to the ceiling. And you think, oh yeah, you wouldn't do that. And when she, I'm pretty sure again it was Francie, but when she translated that to bent over rows, it helped me see that pattern with deadlifts. If deadlifts, you don't want to be like this and that kind of hyperextension in your cervical part of the spine. So that is something that I really try and just communicate to client. And again, we've probably spoken about this before, and just general approaches with teaching clients new movements or anyone a new movement. They're not going to get 100% of it at once. And we spoke about swings being a very complex thing. And if they can't own the deadlift, try and own that first. But even with a deadlift, even if we're giving them 4 or 5, because we don't want to overload them with cues, but even if you want 5 things for them to walk on in the deadlift to make sure they're doing, and they're doing 3 of them, like my first thought process is like, all right, let me at least let them own those 3, and then I can add the 4th layer or the 4th component to make sure they do it right. And it's also a lot of cueing. But as you said, David, there's so many people teaching different ways, and also there's a few reasons for that. Is one, anatomically, so many people are so different, built so differently. And like what's right for one person is not necessarily right for the other person. And that's
I'm talking about deadlifting with a curved spine like a fucking scary.
Oh yeah, no. But I think
that's different.
And then when this is why I remember talking to Lulu about this actually, about like when posting on social media or something, and I said, look, I think one of the safer approaches is to never say, if you don't do like this, you're doing it wrong. because that just isn't accurate. And you can, I think one of the best approaches
That's it for me.
See, this is an approach that might work well for you. There's an approach I want you to try, essentially. But that's kind of what I was going with. Angel, I don't want to cut you off. Sorry.
I forgot what I was going to say. But let's take this opportunity to shift over towards the squats, because I know we got a hard stop soon. So let's talk about those squats real quick. So squat depth and all that.
Yeah. So something that Squat University posted the other day was
shout out
Squat University. I love his stuff. But he said, or his post was, if you have a certain squat range, squat depth, but you could only own it at lighter weights and not at higher weights, higher load. Sorry. Anyone here listening, I got my mic up.
Jacques had a little bit too much beer.
Yeah, too much technical difficulty. So do you still own that squat depth if you can only own it at light weights? That was the thing. And I was trying to find articles. I found more articles on, it's more about how to determine what's the right appropriate squat for someone.
Squat.
What did I say? Squat.
Squat. Yeah, he said squat.
Yo,
damn, that's
what
a
are you
red flag.
thinking about, Jacques?
The appropriate squat for someone, and looking at the assessments they'll do. But what are your guys' feelings on that? I know I posted as a story on my Instagram, and
you said someone said no, right?
So if 15 people voted, 13 people voted you don't own it, or agree that you don't own it, and 2 voted no, I disagree, that's not the case. I didn't respond to them directly. I kind of feel like I should have, because I'd love to hear the thinking.
That can't squat.
I think it just depends.
You'd be surprised, actually.
I think it depends. I think it depends on, the end goal. I think it depends on, because like, look at the stuff that we were talking about with Colin, and even way back with Antoine. Like Colin was speaking about these evolutionary movement patterns, and the fact that you can, like, we're doing these loaded back squats for a reason. And is it really like hypertrophy? Is it function? Is it your daily job to do stuff, right? And then also going back to Antoine's stuff about, like, because we were able to do it thousands of years ago doesn't mean that we should, keep training the same way or moving the same way. So I think it really does depend, like, what is the end goal for somebody? Like, if you're doing light weights, but that's what you do and that's what you feel most comfortable with, then that's cool. If you just hate light weights and hate repetition and you just need to, like, do 5 reps and get in, get out, then that's another thing. I started, checking some shit out at 76th Street, and there are people who spend, now you're only allotted, like, I don't know, God knows, like an hour or something like that to do your workout.
But no one's chasing you out of there, though.
That's true. That is true. But I see people who spend the whole hour, like, doing 2 exercises and doing 3 reps of probably like 2 sets of each exercise and just staring at the bar for the rest of the time. Right. So it's kind of like, and it's not to say that it's wrong, because, like, that might be his goal. That might be his jam. That's what he needs to do with that time. But,
but I think I agree that you don't own it, because because you've seen people that are going back squatting and then their rep or their warm-up weights they look good. Their warm-up weights, they're able to get all the way down there. And as they get up to their working set, it looks like complete shit. And I think at that point, it's like, well, I don't think you own that yet. If it looks like your goal is to get stronger because you're increasing weight, but
it's tricky. It's subjective.
Go on, David. Sorry.
If for your warm-up sets you're going full depth and it looks really nice, what's the point of you not going that same way if you're warming up like that with heavy weight?
Yeah. I think also I guess the other thing I didn't think of until now is the other discrepancy is, like, for example, I know personally I can do 200, 215, maybe 225 for up to 8 reps right now, but not probably 10. I would kind of struggle.
Damn.
I would struggle. I'm trying to do 215 for like 4x8, right? But it's a struggle.
And he's a citizen.
Damn, you a citizen too now?
Oh, damn, shit. 2 for 1.
Ladies and gentlemen, we got a English U.S. citizen.
No, Franco-Scottish. Get it right. I don't call you. You're Ecuadorian, right? You're Ecuadorian. I don't call you something else.
Someone from the UK.
That's a good point. He's a fair.
Angel's Puerto Rican. I don't call Angel something else, do I?
What would you call him?
Damn.
Don't even set me up, David. Damn. Not even gonna go there.
Damn. David's trying to set you over the trap.
Nah, you can't even deport me anymore. You can't even do that.
Wow. hey, our new administration hasn't stopped deporting people yet, so who knows?
Well, the other thing I was going to say real quick, and David has to go, but was, I guess the point I was getting at is, now if you put 275 on the bar, I'd probably struggle to comfortably own it for a greater number of reps. So I don't know if that was the people disagreeing, if that was like, is the argument saying, oh, just because you can do 4x10 at 135 versus 4x3 at 235, does that mean you don't own it necessarily? I don't know if that was their thinking, but I'd love to get
I mean, if you said right now you could do 225 for 8, full depth.
It's more like 215, but
let's say 215 for 8 for full depth. No one expects you to do 275 for 8 deep full rep, full depth.
Is that why they thought that that's a disagreement? That's why I'm interested to think, but
I'm thinking if you could do 215 for 8 clean, and let's say you could do 250 for 1 clean, that's great. I think you own it.
Yeah, that's a fair point.
But I don't expect you to do 8 for 250. And then if you're like, oh, so you're not going full depth, so you don't own it. No, because you can't do it.
Right.
Yeah,
that is true.
That's my.
There comes a point where it's like you put enough weight on the bar and anybody's going to collapse. So
yeah.
Sometimes you're just figuring shit out and you're just like, oops, that was too much. And you end up on the floor. And that's the lesson learned. Yeah. Anyway, we'll wrap it up with that said. Thanks, guys, for tuning in. And we'll see you next week.
All right. Bye, guys.
Bye.